Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning into the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. And of course, I am guest hosting for the day. This is Brett Siegel, otherwise known as the Disgruntled Millennial, broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in Northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about while Kevin Jackson is away in New York. He will be back. He will be back sometime this week, perhaps on Thursday, perhaps on Friday. We don't know these days because Kevin Jackson is constantly being asked to travel and speak his views and speak truth to power in the realm of politics, in the realm of conservative politics, especially on Fox News. You have definitely seen him on Fox News. Just Google search the guy. Kevin Jackson, Fox News. He's always on there bringing truth to power, talking about racism in America, or lack thereof, I should say. And we've had so much news going on today. We are just going to dive right in. In the wake of the Charlottesville massacre. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't a massacre. It was one person got run over by a white supremacist basically after years of Antifa-like characters causing riots and causing mayhem and destruction and basically being ignored by the media. Of course, one person gets run over. I'm not discounting that person. It was a terrible tragedy. It was an awful, disgusting, nasty thing that happened. But as we've come to expect, the left-wing media, or should I just say the media, has not given conservatives a fair shake. They want to pin all conservatives with this white supremacist, white nationalist sort of vibe, this guy that ran over this woman. And unfortunately, you know, it just doesn't stick. Ever since this happened in Charlottesville, universal condemnation on the part of the conservatives. Not one conservative host has come out and said, yeah, we have to, yeah, good that we ran over. Yeah, of course, you know, great, white supremacy, rah, rah, rah. Not one. Not one. Except we see these Antifa folks for the last several years burning the cities down. Burning their own cities down. White folks coming across state lines to protest the Black Lives Matter and the racism and Nazism of Donald Trump. And in the process, they basically burn their cities to the ground. And then they burn other people's cities to the ground. And the moment they get a reaction from like 5 people, seriously, like 5 people, white supremacists do not have the kind of political clout that these Antifa folks have. They don't. They don't have any political power. It's just a bunch of people making a lot of noise. But no, the left-wing media wants to inflate this as though all of us, each and every one of us warm-blooded Americans who has no problem with anyone of any other race. We are not sexist. We are not racist. We are not homophobic. We're not transphobic. The left-wing media wants to paint us all as that white supremacist driver that just drove into the crowd. It's really nasty. It's really gross. It's not fair. I mean, of course, life isn't fair. I could deal with that. But the fact that all these, I swear, I can't even tell you how many text messages I got from ex-friends, people who basically defriended me after Trump got elected, people who basically started telling me, I'm like, oh, you're a Nazi. Oh, you're a Nazi supporter. You're a white supremacist because I voted for Trump. That was it. That was all I did. I voted for Trump. I got text message after text message. Oh, look at what your people have done. Look at what your people have done. You see? You see? You see? That's you wrote that. That's you. That guy that ran over that girl, that's you. Where was the media when Loretta Lynch outright, openly called for violence? Where was the media then? Not a peep. Did we hear anything about, oh, the communists are coming to get us? Oh, the fascists are coming to get us. The Nazis are coming to get us. The brown shirts are coming to get us. No, nothing like that. We didn't hear any of that stuff when Loretta Lynch said this. Roll the clip.
I know that this is a time of great fear and uncertainty for so many people. I know it's a time of concern for people who see our rights being assailed, being trampled on, and even being rolled back.
What rights are being rolled back, Loretta Lynch? What one thing, name one thing that Donald Trump has done to roll back anyone's rights? Okay, Loretta Lynch, name one thing. Now, go ahead. Name one thing. See? Can't do it. And her tirade goes on.
I know that this is difficult, but I remind you that this has never been easy. We have always had to work to move this country forward to achieve the great ideals of our founding fathers.
Don't you love it how leftist hack politicians like to appropriate the values of our founding fathers when it suits them? When it suits them. First of all, she's not even talking about the values of our founding fathers. She's talking about the values of Karl Marx. She's just saying that it's the values of our founding fathers because she's trying to appropriate the idea of patriotism and nationalism. Saying that this is all about the good for the country. It's all about what's good for Americans, right?
And it has been people, individuals who have banded together, ordinary people who simply saw what needed to be done and came together and supported those ideals who have made the difference.
People who came together to do what needed to be done. Oh, like throw trash cans inside of a Starbucks window? Like jumping on police cars like wild animal thugs? Turning over police cars? Assassinating police officers? Assassinating police officers? What do we want? Dead cops? When do we want them now? These are the values that you're talking about, Loretta Lynch? These are the values of Antifa. Are they your values? Are the values of Antifa your values? And do you think do you really think that those are American values? Do you really think that those are the values that are embedded within our Constitution? Is that what you really think?
They've marched. They've bled. Yes, some of them have died. This is hard. Every good thing is. We have done this before. We can do this again.
Well, there you go, Loretta Lynch. Somebody did die. Now, according to your little speech, according to your little tirade, it's just, a casualty of war. They marched, they bled, and some have even died. This is hard, right? So you should be totally okay, right? You should be totally okay with the fact that some people went out there, marched, bled, and died, right? Because your ideal is what matters, right? This Marxist, postmodernist, intersectional feminist, white privilege, toxic masculinity garbage that you Democrats, you liberals like to put out there. Not all liberals, but most of them. I find it really telling that no one has called out Loretta Lynch. She got exactly what she wanted. Death.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS or state? The secret to avoiding the IRS nightmare is to seek professional representation. My friends at Security Tax Associates provide the most cost-effective and ethical representation in the industry while helping to avoid seizures, levies, and wage garnishments. Security Tax Associates is here to ensure that the appropriate steps are taken to permanently eliminate any possibility of future tax burdens once and for all. For a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Security Tax Associates, 844-779-4177. That's 844-779-4177. 844-779-4177. Or visit them at securitytaxassociates.com.
Beth Cook Moranville, author of Closer Than Your Breath, a book of hope.
Hope, that wonderful, wonderful four-letter word that you may feel completely out of. I wrote this book to give you great hope. It's not too late. If fetal position is an all too familiar place for you, I understand. If the next 60 seconds are too long, this book is for you. Wherever you are right now, whether you're dealing with divorce or death or sickness, take hope. You are going to make it through this pain. Don't roll your eyes. I've walked this road and I know it. The best is yet to come.
Closer Than Your Breath, a book of hope from author and speaker Beth Cook Moranville, can be found on Amazon.com or Kindle.com. For more information, visit closerthanyourBreath.com or on Facebook at Closer Than Your Breath.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning into the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. I am Brett Siegel, subbing in for the great Kevin Jackson. I am otherwise known as the Disgruntled Millennial, and I always broadcast to you live from my safe space down here in northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. And you can always get me at Shaq General on Twitter, or you can get me on Facebook at the Disgruntled Millennial. Just click in the search bar, type in the Disgruntled Millennial. I know it's a little bit of a tricky spelling. In millennial, it's 2 L's and 2 N's. But you can always get me there. I'm always posting extreme, hardcore, right-wing fascist posts on Facebook. Hate speech. I'm always posting hate speech. Just kidding. It's actually a bunch of truth that I'm posting. It's just, I get pinned as a hater a lot. You know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is a little bit of political correctness gone mad. An early childhood activist, Dr. Red Ruby Scarlet. Red Ruby Scarlet. You think that's her real name? Red Ruby Scarlet? She wants Father's Day to be renamed. She says calling it Special Persons Day isn't controversial for kids without dads, right? As the Daily Mail reported, Dr. Ruby Red Scarlet is pushing for the annual day on the first Sunday in September to be renamed so children without fathers aren't offended. The activist, with a doctorate in early childhood studies, I wonder from where, is wondering why the idea is so controversial. Why are we calling this political correctness when, in fact, it's about our rights? It is about... All right, sorry. This is just too funny. Feminists, intersectional feminists, leftists. I mean, this is getting completely out of control. Calling Father's Day is not about political correctness. It's about your rights. In other words, if someone wishes you a happy Father's Day and you don't have a father, well, someone just violated your rights. Somehow. Because Father's Day isn't inclusive enough. Father's Day isn't inclusive enough. Because, hey, what about people with 2 moms? We wouldn't want those kids to get offended on Father's Day. Well, because they don't have dads. No, isn't it ironic? Isn't it totally ironic that the same exact intersectional feminist left that calls out toxic masculinity all the time, aren't these the same people that say that toxic cis masculinity is what's plaguing this world today? So why would they want to make these kids feel better? What, in their point of view, what do these kids have to feel better about? The kids who have no fathers, right? Because it's the father in the relationship that breeds all this toxic masculinity, right? So instead of teaching these kids that it should be called Special Persons Day instead of Father's Day, why aren't they teaching these kids that they are actually better off because they don't have dads? You see, these intersectional feminists are so concerned with inclusiveness that they don't even realize that they're eating their own tail. They don't even realize it's like a snake eating its own tail. Which is it? Is fatherhood a good thing or is it a bad thing? If a child doesn't have a father, is that something that a child should feel good about or bad about? Because according to your philosophy, according to the leftist philosophy, it's toxic masculinity that's causing all the problems in the world. If boys would just simmer down and not be so rambunctious in class, and if they would just be a little bit more like girls. And doesn't it seem like feminists think that all boys are just broken girls? All boys are just broken girls. And that's how kids are raised. That's how boys are raised. They're raised to think that they are just broken girls. So why? Why would they want to make it seem like these kids are missing out on something by not having Father's Day? Shouldn't they just be, instead of trying to refurbish Father's Day so that it's Special Persons Day, why wouldn't they just ban the whole idea altogether? Why wouldn't they just ban the whole idea of Father's Day? Now, this story sort of rings true for me because you know what? Some of you might know, some of you might not know, but my father died when I was 6 years old. My father died when I was 6 years old from hemophilia-related AIDS. That was a terrible blow for my family. Growing up without a dad was awful. There was a huge void in my life. No one taught me how to shave. Maybe that's why I look so weird all the time, but no one taught me how to shave. No one taught me some of the more basic fundamental things about being a boy, about what it means to be a boy. A lot of that stuff I had to learn on my own because my father passed away when I was 6 years old. Now, did I go around whining about Father's Day every time Father's Day rolled around? No, I celebrated the father that I had. Because you know what? If you are alive today, if you are a human being on this earth, you had a father. You had a father. There was a male sperm that fertilized your egg, and you are now a human being. You have a father. You had a father. Now, did I get butthurt every time Father's Day rolled around? It was a somber time. It was a somber time. Yeah, you know what? It was a somber time. If anything, it goes to show you that people who don't have fathers need Father's Day just so that they can understand, just so that they can truly understand what it means to have a father by accepting that you don't have a father. The void of not having my father in my life was catastrophic for me. And trying to brush that under the rug and not acknowledge it and try to think of it as though it's just a different way to grow up. Just different. It's not better or worse. It's just different. No, having a father would have been awesome. And on Father's Day, I celebrate the gifts that he did give me, whether he's here to celebrate with me or not. And instead of teaching these kids that Father's Day is just some uninclusive holiday for cis white gendered white supremacy, it's just sick. It's just sick in the head. It just goes to show you that leftists want to rip down every pillar of Western civilization, and starting with the family. If they can make people think that the family is the source of all the issues in the world, well, then they can pretty much do anything. If they can tear apart the nuclear family, if they can tear apart man and a woman getting together and having kids and having that be the norm, then Western civilization will break itself apart from the inside out over time. Father's Day is a day that celebrates the irreplaceable force that fathers have in the lives of their children. Just as mothers. It's funny, you don't see these leftists talking about banning Mother's Day or changing Mother's Day to Special Persons Day. No, this is clearly anti-male bigotry. Anti-male bigotry. And these people don't even stop and think about people like me. People who lost our dads, but still choose to understand and feel the void of not having a dad. Yeah, it would have been great to grow up and be like, yeah, my life is perfect. I don't need a dad. Dads are for suckers. Dads promote toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is what's wrong with the world. So let's strip the dad out of every home. You see, they're not even thinking about the people who are truly affected by not having a dad. They think that we are so weak-minded. That someone saying that a day celebrating fathers is going to get us so mad and it's going to get us so upset that we're going to feel so unincluded that's going to be have deleterious side effects for our psyches, right? And these feminists want to pretend like this is about their rights. How about this, feminists? What about my right to acknowledge reality that people need dads in their lives?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. The Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Kevin Jackson Show, and I am subbing in for the great Kevin Jackson today. This is Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial. You can catch me at Shaq General on Twitter. You can catch me on Facebook at the Disgruntled Millennial. That's 2 L's and 2 N's in Millennial. And I always broadcast to you live from my safe space down here in Northern Florida, where I'm free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, homophobia, sexism, and patriarchy. And today we were just a few minutes ago, we were talking about Father's Day. We were talking about Father's Day, or as many feminists want to change it to, they want to change it to Special Persons Day, because fathers display toxic masculinity. And of course, a father had to have sex with a woman, or there had to be some sort of in vitro kind of thing going on. But either way, you need the man in the equation in order to have kids. Therefore, fathers are important. They have implicit value. Without fathers, I mean, needless to say, the feminists aren't attacking Mother's Day, so let's just talk about fathers for a second, because of course, without mothers, there wouldn't be human existence. But guess what? Without fathers, there wouldn't be any human existence either. Now, this sad, pathetic, disgusting, grotesque attempt for feminists to alter the course of Western civilization by taking down, by destroying one of its fundamental pillars, one of the pillars that holds the entire thing together. They're trying to diminish the value of the family. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to diminish the value of the family by taking fathers out of the equation. Now, to me, it's absolutely disgusting. Because I didn't grow up with a father. My father died when I was 6 years old from hemophilia-related AIDS. AIDS back in the 1980s, which was a death sentence. Magic Johnson is still kicking because luckily for him, he had the best medicine, he had the best doctors. But back in the 1980s, if you were diagnosed with AIDS, that was a literal death sentence. How many of you have actually had to go through the trauma of making your own funeral plans? Of picking out your own casket? Would you like to pick out your own casket, or would you want your family to pick out your own casket for you? My father picked out his own casket when he was 35 years old. 35 years old. I am turning 35 in October. I am turning 35. I will be as old as my father was when he died in October. But no, he wasn't my father. He was just a special person. He didn't inseminate my mom with his semen. He's just a special person. Now, if you're trying to change the name of Father's Day to Special Persons Day for people like me, so that people like me who grew up without a father could feel more included, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Trying to convince me that growing up without a father was just some great, awesome thing and that, you could just interchange. He was totally interchangeable with any other special person. Of course, I'm doing the air quotes here. You can't see the air quotes, but I'm doing air quotes. Special person? As if you could just replace your father? As if you could replace the time and energy that a father puts into the family? No, you can't. Thankfully, my father left a really nice life insurance policy because, that's what fathers do. They protect their kids. This toxic masculinity that all these lesbian, feminist, intersectional feminist crapheads are always talking about. This is what keeps you alive. This is what keeps you protected. Now, in the 1980s, my father was one of the few straight men that contracted AIDS. And, people in school used to say, oh, Brett, when they were being cruel, oh, Brett, your dad got AIDS from butt sex. When they were trying to be cruel and stuff. No. In actuality, my father was a hemophiliac. He had a blood disorder that's passed on through the mother. He had a blood disorder that when you and I, we go out and we do normal things, we bump ourselves, we go on with our day, we put a little Band-Aid on. No, my father couldn't do that because hemophiliacs, they continue to bleed. Their clotting agent, the blood clot agent where most of us would develop a scab, well, hemophiliac keeps bleeding. So when something happens to a hemophiliac and they need to stop the bleeding, they get these blood transfusions. Now, in the 1980s, they didn't screen for AIDS. They didn't screen for AIDS when people were donating blood. So you have these IV drug users and these homosexuals donating blood. They did not screen for AIDS, and then they injected my father. These blood companies injected my father with AIDS virus, and the rest is history. We sued the blood company, but we didn't win. At the time, there was a big stigma about the AIDS virus because guess what? It just so happens when you are homosexual and you go into a bathroom and you stick your wiener into a bathroom stall hole and just put it in whatever hole is on the other side, that is dangerous behavior. That is the kind of behavior that spreads disease. Now, if you're sick, you don't just go out and breathe on people. Same thing with AIDS, right? You don't just go out and let people plug your hole or whatever. So when a straight man came down with AIDS at that time, it was crazy. So several news stations actually covered my father because one of the things that my mom and dad tried to do was to raise awareness about AIDS. They didn't take this tragic news and just say, okay, well, they throw in the white towel and decide to die in shame and solitude and sadness. No, what they did was they took their message to the community. My father basically outed himself in the 80s as a man who had AIDS, and he brought awareness to the community about the AIDS virus and to help people understand that while by and large homosexuals are the ones who have AIDS, it can affect anyone. It's a human virus. It's a virus that affects all human beings. And they paved the way for research. They paved the way for awareness. They paved the way for education in schools. My father did this, not my special person. Not my special person, my father, my dad. And the fact that he's gone doesn't make him any less my dad. I happen to have a really, really wonderful keepsake that I'd like to play for you. It's my dad. They were being covered by PBS Channel 2. It was a show called Montage, and I think you'll get a small kick out of this. This is back in 1986.
Ed, I first met this young Miami suburban couple while I was covering testimony before the Presidential Commission on AIDS back in November. And what I saw and heard that day convinced me that this was a story that really needed to be shared with South Florida.
My name is Doug Siegel. I'm 35 years old. I've been married for almost 6 years. I have 3 small preschool children. I am a hemophiliac, and I have AIDS.
My name is Ellen Buxtell Siegel. I'm Doug's wife. I'm his friend and his lover. I do not have AIDS, nor do I test positive for the AIDS antibodies. Our children do not have AIDS, nor do they test positive.
What must it be like to know you're going to die? What is it like not to be able to make plans? To know everything important in your life will continue without you? When Doug Siegel went to his doctor complaining of fatigue and fever, he says the doctor's words came out one at a time, in slow motion, like a bad dream.
The doctor diagnosed me with having AIDS-related complex, which is AIDS with the exception that I had not had an opportunistic infection yet. The reaction was, we were kind of stunned because he said what he told us to do was make contingency plans and hope for the best.
Make contingency plans and hope for the best. A death sentence. Wow. That's my dad. Watching that always makes me well up a little bit. My dad, not my special person. Of course, this was back in the 1980s when none of this intersectional feminism crap had taken hold. And dads were actually seen to be as a little bit important in the lives of their children. Who'd have thunk, right? Who'd have thunk that 2 people get together, make new human beings, and that the union of those 2 people together actually may mean something? Now, I'm willing to bet that if my father contracted AIDS in 2017, the feminists would be out there saying, good, another cis white man dies. Now, I celebrate my dad's life every single day of the year. Every single day of my life, I celebrate my father's life. I don't need a day to tell me when and who to celebrate. But let's not pretend that turning Father's Day into Special Persons Day is more inclusive, because guess what? That's not inclusive of me. Because I want Father's Day. I want to remember my father. I want to feel the void. I want to honor him by feeling the void of his absence. How does that not make sense to you intersectional feminists? Seriously. I mean, you've clearly never gone through anything traumatic in your entire life. And instead of dealing with your own damn neuroses, you want to take it out on Western civilization. You want to take it out on every person who has a dad, which is every person. Sick. It's disgusting. Here's my dad / special person talking about what it was like planning his own funeral.
That's one of the problems that I have dealing with death dealing with my death, is that time and life goes on. I am here now. One day I won't be here. But my children are still going to go to school. Ellen is still going to work. Life is going to go on. And the time, and I think it bothers me that I won't be here to participate.
Happy Special Persons Day. We'll be right back.
Kevin Jackson on the Black Sphere Radio Network.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS or state? The secret to avoiding the IRS nightmare is to seek professional representation. My friends at Security Tax Associates provide the most cost-effective and ethical representation in the industry while helping to avoid seizures, levies, and wage garnishments. Security Tax Associates is here to ensure that the appropriate steps are taken to permanently eliminate any possibility of future tax burdens once and for all. For a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Security Tax Associates, 844-779-4177. That's 844-779-4177. 844-779-4177. Or visit them at securitytaxassociates.com.
Putting an end to identity politics. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. And of course, I'm guest hosting for the day. This is Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial, broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in Northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and patriarchy. And we just heard of something really, really great from Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley, the legendary basketball player, unfortunately, has come out as a bigot. A proud, brazen bigot. A racist. A man who hates black people. But wait a minute, no. Charles Barkley's black. So I guess that would make him what? A house Negro? An Oreo? Would that make him an Uncle Tom? Because he's come out with some pretty racist stuff against black people, not against white people. We're talking about Charles Barkley, the legendary basketball player, coming out as a brazen racist. Let's hear what Charles Barkley said, which is going to have him labeled as a house Negro from here on out, despite all his legendary escapades. Let's hear it. The racist, black man hating Charles Barkley weighing in on the monument debate. Should we or should we not get rid of these Confederate monuments which remind everyone of racism and make people do racist things? That's what happens when you look at the monument. You get racist feelings inside. Leftists are so stupid.
I'm not going to waste my time worried about these Confederate statues. That's wasted energy. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep doing great things. I'm going to keep trying to make a difference, number one, in the black community because I'm black, but I'm also going to try to do good things in the world. I'm not going to waste my time screaming at a neo-Nazi who's going to hate me no matter what, and I'm not going to waste my time trying to worry about these statues they got all over the country.
So do you leave them up and ignore them? Or do you...
I've always ignored them. Rick, I'm 54 years old. I've never thought about those statues a day in my life. I think if you ask most black people, to be honest, they ain't thought a day in their life about those stupid statues.
Fighting words.
What we as black people need to do, we need to worry about getting our education.
More fighting words.
We need to stop killing each other.
Fighting words.
We need to try to find a way to have more economic opportunity and things like that.
Oh my God, hate speech. Well, there you go. The hateful, crazy, unhinged, house Negro, Oreo, Uncle Tom, bigot, racist, homophobe, sexist, Charles Barkley, the legendary basketball player, who clearly doesn't want any part of this Confederate monument debate, as most of us don't. I mean, come on. It's really just one big distraction, right? What I don't get is why the left is blowing their political capital, the little political capital that they have left, on something so utterly absurd and ridiculous. Don't they realize that this is a terrible, terrible strategy? The Democrats have lost control of basically the entire government based on this strategy. This strategy of calling everyone a racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe. Except now that Donald Trump is elected, it's Nazi. Everyone is a Nazi. You're a fascist. You're a Nazi fascist. And it's just so over the top, too. It's so over the top. Have you ever heard of The Boy Who Cried Wolf? Of course you've heard of The Boy Who Cried Wolf because you're a grown-up and it's a story for children. It's a story for children that teaches children not to lie. It shows the ramifications of what happens when you lie. The moral of the story is that when people just outright lie like this, it rips at the social fabric. Because we all agree that Nazis and white nationalists and racism and bigotry are bad. We do. Most of us in this world, most of us in this country agree with that statement. But if you go around calling everyone a Nazi, a bigot, a racist, when an actual bigot, racist Nazi shows up, no one's going to believe you because you told us that we're all bigots. We're all racists. We're all Nazis. The centrists are not Nazis. The classical liberals are Nazis. Conservatives of color are house Negroes. The Tea Party, Christians, any political YouTubers, even apolitical individualists. Capitalists, the founding fathers, the president, neoconservatives, anyone who advocates for a militia or a military. All Nazis, right? We're all a bunch of Nazis. Not one Jew has been hauled away, but we're all Nazis. President Trump hasn't done anything fascistic at all, but yet we are all Nazis. If you support Trump, if you wear a MAGA hat, you're a Nazi. Now, if the real goal was to get rid of Nazism and fascism, you're doing it wrong. It's just a bad strategy. It's just a bad strategy. You don't blow your load on the nearest white person. The nearest white person, if every nearest white person is a Nazi and you start calling everyone Nazis, sooner or later, a white person who walks up into the crowd is going to literally expect you to call them a Nazi and is not even going to listen. They're going to say, oh, well, same thing with racism. The word racism has become so diluted to the point where it's almost like a badge of pride to be called a racist these days. If you're a racist, that means if someone is calling you a racist, that means you just won an argument with a liberal. That means you just dropped a truth bomb on a liberal and they don't know how to answer you. They don't know how to answer your argument. So they called you a racist. And then you walk away saying, yep, I told that guy. Used to be when someone called you a racist, you actually did some introspecting and looked deep down inside and said, well, am I a racist? Did I just say something racist? Do I have racist feelings? And you start counting all your black friends. And no, these days it's just someone calls you a racist. It just means you won an argument with a liberal. It's a bad strategy. It's a bad strategy. If the real goal was to decrease racism in the world, the last thing you want to do is go around calling everyone a racist. If your real goal is to get rid of Nazism and white supremacy, the last thing you want to do is go around calling everyone and their mother white supremacists and Nazis for no reason at all. Because think about it. In Charlottesville, I think it's absolutely disgusting what this white nationalist and white supremacist did. He drove into a crowd, hurt a bunch of people, killed one girl. It's disgusting. But since the left has cried wolf so many damn times, calling us all white supremacists, calling us all racists, burning buildings down, rioting in the streets because of Ann Coulter, really? Milo Yiannopoulos, a gay conservative? Ben Shapiro, a Jewish conservative who has been one of the main targets of the alt-right, of the white nationalists? I swear, if Ben Shapiro is a white nationalist, white supremacist, and he's doing a piss-poor job of it because the guy wears a yarmulke every day. If Trump is a white nationalist, a Nazi, a Jew-hating white nationalist, well, then Trump is doing an awful job of it, too. He was praying on the Temple Mount with a yarmulke on. What Nazi have you seen do that? You see, they pinned the tail on the wrong donkey. If they were really concerned about Nazism, why not show some interest in the Palestinians, who are literally trying to cleanse the Middle East of Jewish blood? There are no Jews in Gaza. No Jews, not one. But no, Israel is the oppressive state. Israel is oppressing the Palestinians. It's all about Palestinian liberation. Yeah, Palestinian liberation, while they glorify violence against Jews, teach their kids Jew hatred, teach their little children mock-ups of Jewish beheadings, beheading IDF soldiers. Children. But conservatives who believe in free market principles, small government, gun rights. We are the Nazis, though. We are the Nazis. We are reminding them of Kristallnacht. It's absolutely insane. It's utterly insane. Because in actuality, the left are the real racists. They're the ones who think that black people are so stupid that they can't get an ID to vote. That black people are so dumb and so incompetent that they need affirmative action laws to give them a push ahead. Leftists think that black people are so stupid that they need Whitey to help them out and give them a leg up. They need Whitey to give up their houses. They need Whitey to give up their resources. They need Whitey to give up their money. Because if they don't, then what do the black people have, according to the left, right? And how are we supposed to take you seriously when you go around calling everyone a Nazi? It's just a bad strategy. You have cried wolf too many times. Nobody believes you anymore. Nobody believes you anymore. I even used to believe that, you know what, maybe liberals are wrong, but they have good intentions, right? It's getting harder and harder and harder for me to believe that. And I think the most evil thing about this is the dilution of the word Nazi. The word Nazi used to mean something. Because if President Trump, Ann Coulter, Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos, and the like are all Nazis, then the word literally has no meaning anymore.
He won't stop until he's the top-rated radio talk show host in America.
What kind of weird competitive freak are you?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning into the Kevin Jackson Show, and I am subbing in for the great Kevin Jackson. My name is Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial, broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, homophobia, sexism, and patriarchy. And I have come across a little clip of audio that I would love to play for you. Because Donald Trump is a Nazi. And we need to root out all of the Nazis from government. We need to root out anyone who has Nazi-esque politics, who even remotely resembles Nazism. Now, why is Donald Trump called a Nazi all the time? Well, he wants to build a border wall. He wants to control illegal immigration. Yes, that's right. That is one of the reasons why leftists say that Donald Trump is a Nazi. That is one of the reasons why the left says that all conservatives are Nazis. We voted for a Nazi. It's white supremacy, right? Because when we say we want to control illegal immigration, what we really mean is that we just want a country with only white people. Only white people in this country. That's what we really mean. We really mean no brown people anywhere. I mean, it's totally and absolutely absurd, but that's what they say. That is what they say. That is what the left says. They say that because we want a smaller government, we want protected borders, that we are Nazis. So let's hear what Bill Clinton had to say about this when he was president, because clearly Bill Clinton was a Democrat. He was a liberal progressive. Clearly he couldn't even be a Nazi, right? He couldn't have any beliefs that slightly resemble Donald Trump's beliefs. And most of America's beliefs, that without borders, we're not a country.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants. but we are also a nation of laws.
Wow, that Bill Clinton sounded like a Nazi back when he was president, huh? A white supremacist. But thankfully, the news media is so honest and so unbiased that they reported on this as they are reporting on Donald Trump. They came out and said that Bill Clinton was a Nazi. Let's hear a little compilation of news broadcasters from back in the 90s treating Bill Clinton as fairly as they are treating Donald Trump today. Yep, that's right. Not one word about white supremacy. Not one word about racism. Not one word about la raza. Not one word about Nazism. About Jew hatred. About Black Lives Matter. You see, this is why it's so hard for me to ascribe good intentions to these people, because they are brazen hypocrites and liars. They think we are not paying attention. They think we are not going to remember. They think we are not going to remember that Bill Clinton himself, and I appreciate that he wanted closed up borders. That was one of the things that he campaigned on. Now, if leftists want to have a conversation about immigration, the value of immigration, what we ought to do about it, and the value of inviting people into this country, whether documented or undocumented, we could have that. But no, they just want to sling the Nazi epithet at you. They want to sling the racist epithet at you, expecting that you are so stupid, that you are so dumb, that you are so brain dead, that you aren't going to remember that just a few years ago, they were saying the exact same thing as Donald Trump, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. There used to be things that Democrats and Republicans could actually agree on, you know. Now it's just identity politics on steroids. Identity politics on steroids. Half of America is deplorable. Half of America is racist. Half of America is Nazis, even though there isn't one manifestation of any of that stuff, politically speaking. Institutionally speaking. Institutionally speaking, this place is the least racist, the least fascistic country in the world. I mean, Charles Barkley gets it. So that clip from Bill Clinton, it must have, it was back in the 90s, okay? Things were a little bit different then, right? Things were a little bit different back in the 90s. Maybe the Democrats came to. Maybe the Democrats just, decided one day that, that their old ways were bad, that their Nazi fascistic ways of trying to protect the borders were bad, and they came to light in the new millennium, and Barack Obama turned that around. He reversed Bill Clinton's Nazi-esque, racist immigration attitude, right?
Even as we are a nation of immigrants, we're also a nation of laws. Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe that they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous. When I took office, I committed to fixing this broken immigration system, and I began by doing what I could to secure our borders. But today, our immigration system is broken, and everybody knows it. There are actions I have the legal authority to take as president. Tonight, I'm announcing those actions. We'll build on our progress at the border with additional resources for our law enforcement personnel so that they can stem the flow of illegal crossings and speed the return of those who do cross over. If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. We expect people who live in this country to play by the rules. We expect that those who cut the line will not be unfairly rewarded. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, question my authority, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer. Pass a bill.
There you go. The bigot, racist, Mexican-hating, Nazi, Barack Hussein Obama. Of course, he abandoned that. I mean, who knows? To me, he might have been just saying that stuff to kind of give a little bit of red meat to the center, but we know what he really thinks. We know what Bill Clinton really thinks. They want open borders. They want George Soros-type globalism, progressivism, communism, basically. And how did the mainstream media react to Barack Obama's brazen hatred towards immigrants?
Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS or state? The secret to avoiding the IRS nightmare is to seek professional representation. My friends at Security Tax Associates provide the most cost-effective and ethical representation in the industry while helping to avoid seizures, levies, and wage garnishments. Security Tax Associates is here to ensure that the appropriate steps are taken to permanently eliminate any possibility of future tax burdens once and for all. For a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Security Tax Associates, 844-779-4177. That's 844-779-4177. 844-779-4177. Or visit them at securitytaxassociates.com.
Beth Cook Moranville, author of Closer Than Your Breath, a book of hope.
Hope, that wonderful, wonderful four-letter word that you may feel completely out of. I wrote this book to give you great hope. It's not too late. If fetal position is an all too familiar place for you, I understand. If the next 60 seconds are too long, this book is for you. Wherever you are right now, whether you're dealing with divorce or death or sickness, take hope. You are going to make it through this pain. Don't roll your eyes. I've walked this road and I know it. The best is yet to come.
Closer Than Your Breath, a book of hope from author and speaker Beth Cook Moranville, can be found on Amazon.com or Kindle.com. For more information, visit closerthanyourBreath.com or on Facebook at Closer Than Your Breath.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Kevin Jackson Show, and I am, of course, subbing in for the great Kevin Jackson. He is away triggering leftists all over the country, this time in New York. He's going to be on several different radio shows, several different Fox shows. I am Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial, broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in northern Florida, where I'm free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. And I think we should listen to this audio of Bill Clinton talking about what he believes is a proper immigration policy. Of course, if you're a leftist, you can imagine what he said. If you're a young leftist, you weren't actually there, but let's just pretend like leftists make any sense. And that if we were to assume what Bill Clinton, a progressive Democrat, was going to believe about immigration, you would think that he would be all about open borders, not bothering people who are undocumented, not bothering sanctuary cities, letting sanctuary cities allow undocumented or illegal immigrants into their cities and basically shirking their responsibilities to keep our citizenry safe. Right? That's what we're going to expect. That is what we are going to expect from Bill Clinton, right? We expect him to be tolerant of undocumented immigrants. We expect him to be super duper friendly towards the idea of just inviting a bunch of people into this country, because that's what the Democrats want, right? It's the opposite behavior that makes Donald Trump look like a Nazi, right? So clearly, liberal Democrats like Bill Clinton, when he was president, would have, of course, gone the opposite route of Donald Trump, right? He would have gone open borders instead of closed borders, because leftists aren't hypocrites at all, right? Leftists are consistent in their beliefs, right? If Donald Trump is a Nazi for believing in closed borders, then wouldn't Bill Clinton and Barack Obama also be Nazis for believing in closed borders?
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws.
Now, just so you can taste the hypocrisy in your mouth, I'm going to play you a clip from just a couple days ago of Don Lemon, the hack on CNN, of Don Lemon responding to basically the same speech from Donald Trump in Phoenix, Arizona. Don Lemon, the hack.
Well, what do you say to that? I'm just going to speak from the heart here. What we have witnessed was a total eclipse of the facts. Someone who came out on stage and lied directly to the American people and left things out that he said in an attempt to rewrite history, especially when it comes to Charlottesville. He's unhinged. It's embarrassing. And I don't mean for us, the media, because he went after us, but for the country. This is who we elected president of the United States. A man who is so petty that he has to go after people who he deems to be his enemy, like an imaginary friend of a 6-year-old.
Wow, Don Lemon, such astute commentary. I can't believe that you have a job. I can't believe that you have a job. You are such a nincompoop, Don Lemon. CNN is supposed to be the objective news source, the unbiased news source. And this guy, Don Lemon, he's front and center. They love him over there. But he is such a nincompoop. When I was in debate, there was such a thing called backing up your argument with a warrant. Warranting your argument. You make a claim, and then you warrant your claim. You make your point, and then you provide some evidence to back it up. No, but Don Lemon, he's just going on a tirade, on a rant on Donald Trump for saying the same exact thing that Obama and Bill Clinton said.
His speech was without thought. It was without reason. It was devoid of facts. It was devoid of wisdom. There was no gravitas. There was no sanity there. He was like a child blaming a sibling.
About seven different claims, not one warrant. This is not news. Don Lemon is not a reporter. He's a brazen liar and hypocrite.
On something else. He did it. I didn't do it. He certainly opened up the race wound from Charlottesville. A man clearly wounded by the rational people who are abandoning him in droves, meaning those business people and the people in Washington now who are questioning his fitness for office and whether he is stable. A man backed into a corner, it seems, by circumstances beyond his control and beyond his understanding. That's the truth. If you watch that speech as an American, you had to be thinking, what in the world is going on? This is the person we elected as a president of the United States? This petty? This small? The person who's supposed to pull the country together? Certainly didn't happen there. Let's break it all down now.
Yes, because of people like you. Because of people like you. That is who we elected as president. Because of brazen hypocrites and liars who won't even call out their own side. When there was a murder in Charlottesville by a white supremacist who drove his car into a crowd, there was universal condemnation from the right. Universal condemnation. I did not hear one person who said, oh, well, that's just great. We love it when white supremacists kill Antifa. We just love it. I didn't hear one person going out to support that guy who ran those people over. That's the difference between the left and the right. We're willing to call out our own. When Antifa burns down Berkeley, when Antifa throws a trash can through a Starbucks sign, oh, that's about social justice. When leftist YouTubers go on YouTube and say that, oh, it's okay to punch a Nazi, that's not inciting violence. But Donald Trump, when he says that we need closed borders, he's winking at the white supremacists saying, go out and kill some illegal immigrants. Go out and take your anger out on some brown people. That's what he's saying, right? But no, when Loretta Lynch openly calls for violence, blood, death in the street. No, that's not inciting violence. Same behavior, right? This is why I can't take the left seriously. This is why I can't trust them. This is why I don't trust a leftist. They are either knowingly lying to you or too stupid to know that everything that they believe isn't true. Either way, you can't trust them. Don Lemon, our president isn't the embarrassing one. You're the embarrassing one. You are an embarrassment to journalism. You are an embarrassment to TV. You look like a nincompoop. And you know what? You are only there because you're a black guy. There, I said it. If you weren't black, nobody would care about what you have to say. That is affirmative action in journalism right there. Don Lemon's existence as a broadcaster, as a news broadcaster, is affirmative action because he is so stupid that he thinks that what he's doing is objective news. We're going to play a little bit more audio from him. He tried to basically race bait Morgan Freeman, and Morgan Freeman, the voice of God, just wasn't having it. We'll be right back.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Kevin Jackson Show. I am Brett Siegel, the disgruntled millennial, filling in for the great Kevin Jackson. You can always get me at Shaq General on Twitter, at Shaq General. Tweet me, send me your hate mail, anything you want to send me. If you want to send me some memes, I love memes. I love meme warfare. I know that makes me sort of a violent type of guy, but yes, I love meme warfare. And feel free to send me your memes at Shaq General on Twitter. I am Brett Siegel, again, the disgruntled millennial, always broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. And again, I want to thank our sponsors for supporting the show. I want to thank Kevin Jackson for letting me sit here in the big boy chair. I really love doing this. I love talking politics. You know, I'm not really popular at parties, especially where there's a lot of liberal folks. You know, I sort of bring it once in a while. Because look, you know, 99% of the time when someone tells you not to come to a party because you disagree with their politics, they don't want you to talk politics. Oh, Brett always talks politics. You know what? I don't really always talk politics. People do talk politics. And if I'm in a group where someone is talking politics, I will bring up my politics. You know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But oftentimes, people don't necessarily like the things that I say, so they want to talk politics, but they want to do it in an echo chamber where there isn't any dissent, where there aren't any dissenting beliefs, where there aren't any people who might disagree. Now, obviously, these days, Hollywood is going off its rails. I can barely watch TV anymore. They shove this propaganda down your throat, and it's so brazen. It's so obvious. If you're going to make propaganda, at least do it well. The best kind of propaganda is the kind that you don't really know that you're being propagandized. But when you have these entire shows, movies based on global warming and movies based on, the 1%, like The Day After Tomorrow, where because of global warming, birds are just going to fall out of the sky. The Day After Tomorrow, New York will be covered in an ice sheet. I mean, the plot of Hollywood movies these days are just getting silly. Like Elysium, it's all about the 1%. Elysium, that movie about, there's a space station where only the rich people go and they stay healthy and beautiful and white. And down on Earth, it's dreadful. The 99% is down on Earth. It's just a big analogy for the 1% versus the 99%. Occupy Democrats, garbage, basically, into a movie. Occupy Democrats made into a movie. Elysium with Matt Damon. Huge progressive leftist. Now, thankfully, not everyone in Hollywood has taken the bait, has taken the race bait. You know, Ashley Judd going out talking about her period blood, Rosie O'Donnell, Madonna talking about blowing up the White House, even Martin Sheen. But you know what? There's one particular member of the Hollywood elite who is just so filthy stinking rich and so filthy stinking successful and so amazing, and his voice just commands like the word of God. Obviously, I'm talking about Morgan Freeman. Now, constantly, Morgan Freeman grew up in a time when racism was really real and there and institutional. So for Morgan Freeman, a guy who's blacker than Barack Obama, a billionaire, coming out against this race-baiting crap, that's a big one. I mean, I'll see your Ashley Judd, Rosie O'Donnell, Madonna, and even your Martin Sheen and Robert Downey Jr., and I will raise you one Morgan Freeman. It's so funny. People are always trying to get Morgan Freeman to talk about race. Lefties are always trying to get Morgan Freeman to talk about race, to defend identity politics, to defend Black Lives Matter. And does Morgan Freeman take the bait? Let's hear. Let's see if Morgan Freeman takes the race-baiting garbage of the left. Here's Morgan Freeman talking about Black History Month.
Black History Month you find ridiculous. Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? Well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman.
There we go. The man, the voice of Beyond the Wormhole, the voice of God, the Hollywood voice of God, declares that Black History Month is stupid. Now, if I said that, Brett Siegel, white guy, cisgendered, white male, if I said that Black History Month is stupid, what do you think would happen? Honestly, what do you think would happen if I came out and said that Black History Month is stupid and I think it should be abolished? There shouldn't be a Black History Month. It promotes racism. It promotes black supremacy, which, let's face it, if the left were consistent at all, would have to renounce black supremacy, right? Because they're all for equality, right? Now, here's Don Lemon trying to basically race bait and class bait Morgan Freeman into admitting that there's some sort of institutional racism that's keeping black people down. Two black guys on CNN, filthy, stinking rich black guys talking about income inequality between the races. Now, when Don Lemon tries to bait Morgan Freeman into basically admitting that Black Lives Matter and that the 1% and income inequality and leftist blah, 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 it's funny. It's funny. It's like it's like Morgan Freeman just told Don Lemon to go outside, pick his own switch off of the tree so Morgan Freeman could come back and whoop his behind. Now, clearly, Don Lemon didn't think that Morgan Freeman was going to give him the answer that Morgan Freeman gave him. Because he's a racist. Don Lemon is a racist. Don Lemon thinks that just because Morgan Freeman is black, that he's going to get down with the whole, he's going to get jiggy with the whole Black Lives Matter, income inequality narrative. Which is racist. Let's face it. If you think that someone should have a particular belief because of their particular race, well, then that is racist. That is a racist belief for you to have.
Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't
Today?
or cannot? Yeah.
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof.
Notice, you and I, we're proof. That's what he said. You and I, two black men who are basically at the top of their game. I know why Morgan Freeman is at the top of his game. I don't know why Don Lemon is at the top of his game. But yes, that is proof. There is proof out there that institutional racism is not a thing anymore. It's not a thing anymore. And you realize how fast he said that? He didn't even have to think about it. He said, you and I, we are proof.
Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Yeah. I said, and it's probably get me in trouble, but I said to some of my colleagues recently, I know that it's an issue, but it seems like every single day on television I'm talking about race, and it's because of the news cycle, it's in the news, but sometimes I get so tired of talking about it, I want to...
Don Lemon, shut up. You are not tired of talking about this. You love talking about this. This is all you talk about. This is all you talk about, because this is the only card you have to play, is the race card. But you know that Morgan Freeman is a brilliant man who has pulled himself up by his bootstraps and has made himself a billionaire. And you know that his very existence lays waste to your entire narrative. And he is sagacious. When he speaks, people listen. So of course you're going to sit there and say, yeah, I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of talking about race. It seems like race is always in the news cycle. People like you are the ones who bring race into the news cycle when it doesn't even have to be there. When it never was there. You want to ascribe racial motivations to every crime. You want to ascribe racial motivations to your opponents. To your political opponents. You are the one doing this. You are a part of this problem. Now, just because you're sitting there in front of Morgan Freeman and you feel like a child being spoken to by an adult doesn't mean that the rest of us don't know that you are lying to Morgan Freeman, right? You love race baiting. You love race politics. You love talking about race. It's the only card that you have to play. So don't pretend like you don't like talking about race. That's your whole bag.
I want to just go, this is over. Can we move on?
And if you talk about it, it exists.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like it exists and we refuse to talk about it, but making it a bigger issue than it needs to be is the problem we have.
We now take you live to the Senate floor, where Senator Chuck Schumer is delivering an impassioned speech.
Oh God, no. It hurts. It hurts.
Kevin Jackson on the Black Sphere Radio Network.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS or state? The secret to avoiding the IRS nightmare is to seek professional representation. My friends at Security Tax Associates provide the most cost-effective and ethical representation in the industry while helping to avoid seizures, levies, and wage garnishments. Security Tax Associates is here to ensure that the appropriate steps are taken to permanently eliminate any possibility of future tax burdens once and for all. For a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Security Tax Associates, 844-779-4177. That's 844-779-4177. 844-779-4177. Or visit them at securitytaxassociates.com.
Putting an end to identity politics. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning into the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. And of course, I am your guest host for the day, Brett Siegel, otherwise known as the Disgruntled Millennial, broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. Today, we have a very, very special guest with us. His name is Joshua Naibo. He is a writer, a veteran, a returning student, and he's currently working on starting a web series to go along with some articles and some commentary that he writes. Joshua, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today is Antifa. Antifa has been just sort of a thorn in our backside, and unfortunately, the left does not come out against these people like the right. We've heard universal condemnation from people on the right of these white supremacists, but on the left side, where Antifa likes to go and cause riots and hurt people and throw rocks at people, and we hear crickets from the left. And I wanted to talk to you today about Antifa. What explains this growing support for such a clearly fascistic philosophy?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you look at most of the member base, it's young people. And young people, especially in America today, are often kind of casting about, looking for meaning. They want to belong. Remember that we're living in a society where we have largely thrown away God. We've largely thrown away a lot of the ties that used to bind. Our social structure is not what it was. And so we have a lot of disaffected, disgruntled youth who they have the passion of youth. They want to feel like they're doing something. And so when they see this group, they think, oh, I'm fighting the good fight, and because Antifa considers itself effectively above the law and that it has the right to just attack people at will, it gives them the double bonus of feeling like part of a group, but also feeling like they don't actually have to rein themselves in or exercise any kind of self-control. It's saying you're doing good by just doing what feels good. You know, your first, most immediate impulse. And again, since most of them are young, their first impulse is probably not going to be as thought out. So, like I said, the appeal is they want to be part of a group. They want to be part of the good fight. And Antifa gives that impression, I think, to impressionable young people.
Right. And, you know, just to add to that, a lot of this postmodern cultural relativism stuff that's going on, the white privilege, microaggressions, toxic masculinity. I mean, the whole thing about microaggressions is to basically give people a reason to perform actual aggressions. If somebody aggressed you in some way, what's your natural response going to be? You're going to want to respond with a certain type of aggression. It lends itself to an intellectual environment where these kids are basically being taught to respond to speech with actual aggressions. And I think that that's one of the things that also gets these people actually up in arms and out there with their batons and their masks and their bottles. And
yeah, it's definitely very much they want to feel like they're part of the good fight, and it's exciting. Instead of doing little things every day to help people, because they live in a country where most of the quote social justice fight has effectively already been won. It's as far as like reasonable actual redress of like legitimate grievances, like say Jim Crow, for example. So but that's not as exciting. It's not as fun as being part of this masked army.
Right. And that's one of the things that Kevin Jackson also talks about a lot is that, you know, one day there used to be a time when these things were actual institutional problems and they needed to be fought. But as soon as those problems went away, as soon as there was full equality under the law, there was a group of people had to basically figure out what they were going to do for a living, right? Like the Al Sharptons, the Jesse Jacksons of the world, the Jeremiah Wrights of the world. They had to figure out how they were going to continue to make money. And one of the things Kevin Jackson likes to talk about is race pimping, which is basically these folks who just can't leave well enough alone. They can't take yes for an answer. And, of course, just like you said, these young people, they want to be involved in social justice. They want to effect change. And if they're gotten to at a young enough age, well, then they're not given this the broader overview of history and their own place in it. So if they can be convinced that black people are still being oppressed, that women are still being oppressed, that minorities are still being oppressed, just like you said, they think they are fighting the good fight. But a lot of conservative folks have said we should punch back twice as hard. What do you think about that? Should we punch back twice as hard?
I would argue no, because I think that one of the things that will taint our movement is if we become seen, to use the analogy in my article, like if we're just another person in a two-man bar fight, people won't sympathize with us. People won't condemn them. It'll just be, oh, well, you know, they're both equally bad, blah, blah, blah. That usual rigmarole. We're trying to fight from the moral high ground, not just because, you know, that sounds good from a pulpit in church. We're trying to fight that because that's what works. We're looking at examples like Martin Luther King. We're looking at examples like Gandhi. We're looking, going back to that church, examples like Jesus, where punching back is not always the best option on the individual level. Now, I'm not saying that if these people were invading homes, don't defend your family, or a number of other contexts. I'm saying that as far as rallies in the streets,
right,
it is always serving our interest and helping to discredit theirs. If we are leading by moral example, which is refusing to contribute to street violence and political street fighting in America, while the cameras are rolling and showing them being a part of this group, I think that's going to do a better job in the long term of helping our standing and hurting theirs, and also as far as helping. The more they hurt innocent people without cause on camera, the more that it will help reduce their appeal. The same way you see edgy kids running around with Chase shirts and with Mao shirts, blah blah blah. You don't see any running around with swastika shirts. Like there's even edgiest of the edgelords aren't going to push the envelope that far in school. And there's a reason. It's because Nazism is, with good reason, so tainted, and we're trying to push Antifa into that category. Whereas if we're out there mixing it up with them, it's not going to be as effective. We're going to look like we're the same thing, but from red states, but with an elephant logo. And that's the thing. We're trying to make the distinction between us and them. We want America to see that we condemn extremists. We don't engage in street violence. The Democrats do. The Democrats are in a sort of brown-shirted lockstep unity, except that unity is leading them over a cliff. And I would say also that for practical reasons, not just moral ones, let's ask ourselves, the Democrats have been behaving this way. How many houses of Congress do they control? I am pretty sure they also managed to lose the presidency to someone that they felt was as stupid and incompetent as Donald Trump. So what happened? And where I'm going with that is that their behavior is having consequences. It might be frustrating to see them behave this way, but it is costing them. And if we are doing the right thing, we will benefit. And we would still be better off, as painful, physically painful as what I'm suggesting is, doing this than allowing ourselves to effectively continue to escalate, to continue to cycle downward until the example I used in my article, until we become similar to Weimar Germany. And that did not end well. For the viewers who aren't quite as familiar with history, Weimar Germany was the period in between World War I and World War II, the tempestuous quasi-democracy that was around for about 12 years before Hitler took power. And those 12 years were characterized by exactly what you've seen in a very, very, very small scale in places like Charlottesville, et cetera, where you had these roaming street armies from the communists. Antifa itself was, by the way, created by the German Communist Party. It was one of those private armies. And they would go scrap against the Reichsbanner, which were the Social Democrats, and the brown shirts for the Nazis. And who's the real people who suffered in these little street brawls was the common German man and the common German property owner. And I think that if that comes to America, that is going to be a terrible thing. One, in terms of where that's going to lead our republic, and two, the death and destruction for mostly the bystanders, first and foremost.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We are going to be back here with Joshua Nybo. We are talking about Antifa. We are talking about what conservatives should do in the face of being targeted by basically this radical leftist group who basically wants nothing more than to punch a Nazi. And if they can make everyone think that everyone is a Nazi, well, then guess what? They can go and realize their fantasies of violence and just go around punching people. We'll be right back with Joshua Nybo. Get me at Shaq General on Twitter.
He won't stop until he's the top-rated radio talk show host in America.
What kind of weird competitive freak are you?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning into the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. And of course, I'm your host for the day, Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial, broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in Northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. And we are back again with another segment with Joshua Nybo. He's a writer. He's a veteran. He's working on starting a web series to go along with his articles and commentary. He's trying to bring conservatism and biblical principles back into the realm so we can fight the left properly and not like the left is trying to fight us. And that's one of the things that we were just talking about. We were just talking about why the left continues to lose and what it is that we should do. Should we fight them tooth and nail, or should we just let them implode and let the world see them for what they are? We were just talking about pre-World War II Germany. Let's get back to that.
All right. Yeah, so pre-World War II Germany, you had, as I was saying, a number of private political armies. Each party had its own associated militia. The Brown Shirts, famously for the Nazis. Antifa was for the communists. It was one of a number of groups for the commies. The Reichsbanner for the Social Democrats. I don't remember all of them by name, but every party had one. There was like 13 major parties. So you can imagine the chaos. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying we're there yet, but that was basically setting up a situation in which there was democracy couldn't function. Representative government was being continuously short-circuited by the fact that anytime people tried to speak or have discourse in a civil way, one of the other party's thugs would come and cause trouble. And like I said, the major loser in all of this conflict in the 20s and early 30s was the average German shopkeeper, the average German worker, the average German everything, because it was on their property, it was in their streets, and sometimes spilling into their homes, into their churches, etc. Of this back and forth political fighting. And the reason why it's hard to remember some of the names of these political armies was because of exactly what I don't want to have happen here, which is that there's so many of them engaging in essentially the same thing. Even the good guys, even the people who aren't communists and Nazis, right? That they kind of blur together, and that's exactly what I don't want to have happen. For them to blur together in context of Antifa versus basically everyone else, because Antifa views themselves as having a license to break the law and be violent because they view pretty much everyone that is not them as fascist, and that they paint everyone with the colors of the neo-Nazi movement, the alt-right, etc. And so, yeah, the only time I've ever seen them actually protesting or engaging with real Nazis, real fascists, as their name seems to imply they'd be all about, was Charlottesville. That was the one time in all of the violence we've seen since the election and during the election.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the mainstream media has a monopoly on the narrative. So of course these the Antifa folks are going to be upheld, they're going to be promoted, they're going to be supported, they're not going to be rebuked in any way. And any time that you see a conservative fart the wrong way, and just so you know, as a disclaimer, I do not call white supremacists and Nazis conservative. They're exactly the opposite. To me, Antifa and white supremacists battling it out just looks like a bunch of communists, a bunch of socialist communist people battling it out with each other. They're anything but right wing, if you were to ask me. But the mainstream media's monopoly on the narrative has made it so that we conservatives are always under a microscope. We are always under scrutiny. If a conservative farts the wrong way or breathes the wrong way, if Donald Trump has Russian dressing on his salad or says broski to one of his friends, he is colluding with Russia. How do we fight the narrative without, like you said, we shouldn't be punching back because we are under this microscope and we are basically in front of the world. Anytime something happens on this side, it's going to be exaggerated. It's going to be made into a bigger deal. It's going to be made to seem like a bigger endemic institutional problem than it actually is. So without fighting back physically, how else are we going to fight this? It seems like David and Goliath kind of a situation because, what are we going to do? How are we going to take the narrative back?
Well, I think it's important to remember that that Antifa has about as much power and influence as the National Socialist Movement, which is the neo-Nazis. That even though they're dramatic and they're on TV, it's like they're not at a point where we're an existential threat yet. So far, we're still at the level where the police and the army can't handle them. And I think that you're right. We're under the microscope, but the thing is that remember that we've also, like the conservatives, we've always claimed all along that we're the moral high ground, that we're the true Americans, that we're the real patriots, and that we're the common sense people who can balance a budget, who know basically what's best for America. That's been our line, and that the Democrats are a bunch of pie in the sky idiots, so on and so forth. And I think that this is going with doing the right thing is going to, I don't think you should expect to be thanked for it in the sense in that, yeah, it's going to be a crappy job being the one taking the hits. But I think that for the sake of America, that we claim to love first and foremost, maybe that's a hit I'm personally willing to take. And as far as how we're going to fight them, I think that the best way is to do what I was suggesting earlier, which was with cameras. That CNN might try to spin everything against them, but it's very hard to argue with video footage of someone assaulting someone who isn't fighting back with a bike lock or something like that. That's the kind of thing that we can use to help paint the picture of the real Antifa. That's something that we can use, especially during the election time. I mean, if a violence happens in a particular city and a Democrat's running for office and they haven't distanced themselves from Antifa, and yet we have video footage of Antifa assaulting citizens in their jurisdiction, I mean, you can see where the attack ads write themselves. I mean, this is something you can nail them to the crossover again and again and again. And I think that will be a part of a strategy where, yes, it's involving a sacrifice for us, but, speaking to the conservatives, to those who are veterans in the audience, that's a sacrifice we've already said we would be willing to make. And this is now it's time to ante up that if more is asked, then more we will give for the sake of America, for the sake of this country, for the sake of not allowing ourselves to be drawn into a tit for tat.
And I think you're absolutely right about this. We are going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back with Joshua Nybo. He's a commentator, he's a writer, he's a veteran. We'll be right back.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS or state? The secret to avoiding the IRS nightmare is to seek professional representation. My friends at Security Tax Associates provide the most cost-effective and ethical representation in the industry while helping to avoid seizures, levies, and wage garnishments. Security Tax Associates is here to ensure that the appropriate steps are taken to permanently eliminate any possibility of future tax burdens once and for all. For a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Security Tax Associates, 844-779-4177. That's 844-779-4177. 844-779-4177. Or visit them at securitytaxassociates.com.
Beth Cook Moranville, author of Closer Than Your Breath, a book of hope.
Hope, that wonderful, wonderful four-letter word that you may feel completely out of. I wrote this book to give you great hope. It's not too late. If fetal position is an all too familiar place for you, I understand. If the next 60 seconds are too long, this book is for you. Wherever you are right now, whether you're dealing with divorce or death or sickness, take hope. You are going to make it through this pain. Don't roll your eyes. I've walked this road and I know it. The best is yet to come.
Closer Than Your Breath, a book of hope from author and speaker Beth Cook Moranville, can be found on Amazon.com or Kindle.com. For more information, visit closerthanyourBreath.com or on Facebook at Closer Than Your Breath.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are again tuning into the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. We are in the middle of the third hour. We are talking with Joshua Nybo. He is a veteran. He's a writer. He's been working on starting a web series to go along with his articles and commentary to return the grand old party to its roots. And we were just talking about Antifa, what it is that conservatives can do to fight Antifa without stooping down to their level. We were just talking about how Antifa is a terrorist group, not to the point of ISIS, but I mean, they all wear masks. They have a lot of similarities, to be honest. And we're talking about how to fight that. Let's get back into it, Joshua.
Yeah, thanks. The as far as, like I said, the best way to fight them is right now with cameras, with self-sacrifice, and with leading by example of what kind of discourse we want in America. We want an America that engages in talking, that has free assembly, that can wave its flags and hold its signs and say what it pleases without coming to blows. If they want to try and spoil that, I don't think we should let them. I think that we should remember that we are the party that is trying to uphold the rule of law and everything from immigration to crime and punishment in other areas as well. And I think that part of that means that it's on us to remember that even if these people have forgotten that they're dealing with other citizens, not fascists, we need to remember that we are dealing with other citizens, and that as such, there is no moral call for vigilantism. And that is, so long as the police and the army remain capable of handling them, that should be a resort, not taking it into our own hands. And I understand that that's not the emotionally satisfying answer. And there's definitely been a lot of controversy, and a lot of people disagreeing with me, and a lot of people saying crush Antifa with Crusader memes. But the thing is that like crush them how? Are we going to start doing the same thing? And I think that America is watching, and CNN and MSNBC might be trying to paint a different picture, but they don't actually speak for all of America. And again, they can't argue with things like just straight up video footage. That's the sort of thing that they really can't spin. And if they won't even run it, you better believe Fox and others will, and you better believe that that's the kind of thing that will get shared around on Facebook.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think that's definitely one way to go about it. But, Donald Trump getting elected, it seemed like everything was going to, it was a big step in the right direction, electing Donald Trump, I believe. But I don't think that the battle is over. There is so much so much of an uphill battle that we are fighting right now, because the tendency is so strong to basically paint everyone as Nazis, as bigots, as racists. And if you can convince someone that because somebody thinks a certain way that they're actually engaging in violence because of what they think, then more and more and more Americans are going to be okay with that kind of violence. Punch a Nazi. When is it okay to punch a Nazi? How did that even become a question here in America? When is it okay to punch a Nazi? And I like you said, I get the emotional response, wanting to fight for justice, fight for social justice, and wanting to get rid of bad ideas and stuff like that. But I think the best way to go about it, the best way to go about getting rid of bad ideas, is to let them, this is a conservative thing, is to let them speak their bad ideas so we can get a good strong whiff of how awful and terrible it is. But since the mainstream media is so in the can for these Antifa folks, even the mainstream media, I mean, this is irony for you, the mainstream media supporting a group that doesn't support free speech. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But a lot of folks think that if we don't actually fight back in some way, then it is going to have deleterious consequences in the future. And I totally agree with you in the way that we shouldn't be going around and like burning people. We shouldn't, the torches and pitchforks and all that stuff. We shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be doing what they are doing. But but something deep down inside makes me worries me that we should all be prepared for something bigger.
Well, I think that we should always be prepared for something bigger, especially because, like you say, that there's like a bigger fight even after the election of Trump. Well, I think that the fight will never actually end. That we're fighting a monster with many heads, and like the mythical Hydra, they'll just keep regrowing until the end of time. Issues like Antifa, in some form or other, will always be with us. And I think that instead of worrying that, are we letting them overrun America, I think that we should, again, take a step back and breathe and remember, okay, well, they're not in a position to overrun anything right now. They're just really noisy in front of the cameras. They get a lot of attention, but they're not in a position yet to force change. And I think that, like what you were talking about, as far as, the mainstream media has been silent, that's one of the issues that it doesn't get as much media attention, but people do notice that there is a difference that we disown our extremists. They don't. That we refuse to engage in violence. And if you're taking my advice, even if they are, and it's, like I said, it's drawing a bigger and bigger line between us and them. And I think that it's also useful to remember that there are a lot of center-left Democrats who are liberal but not necessarily progressive, not necessarily hardcore Antifa, who aren't going around telling people to mind their pronouns. And there are, like I said, I mean, it might sound shocking, but there are Democrats who are less hardcore, who don't really support Antifa, who don't actually want to see violence. This is I think probably the majority of America is people just to the left or just to the right of that middle line, the middle line as defined by American context. And I think that it's important for us to help reach out to them and remind them that, we still consider them Americans and that we want them to be on board, since they might disagree with us on some issues. But again, they're not like the hardcore social justice left. They're not, hammer and sickle waving, car burning street thugs. And to try to detach them from Antifa, to try to help as much as we can the center and the more moderate liberals to distance themselves the same way we did for the alt-right, to show them that you're being lumped in with this group and they're trying to speak for you. Is this what you stand for? And for the most part, most people don't really stand for street violence.
Of course.
When you put the question to them. So it's like, yeah, I think that it's also important for us to try and remember that as much as possible, we should be trying to put a wedge between Antifa and the rest of the left, since Antifa's methods are actually quite controversial. Like I know personally quite a few Democrats who are not a big fan of Antifa, and I think that we should try to capitalize that. And instead of painting all of them with the colors of the most extreme branch, the way that sometimes the liberal media does with us, and trying to imply basically that all of us are a bunch of Klansmen waving swastikas around.
Right.
I think that we should try to show them that we are more
reasonable,
nuanced, that we're more reasonable, that we're more willing to accept that there are gradiences, that there's different shades, and that not all of them are the same, and to try to reach out to the ones that maybe might be as disgusted with this as we are.
I think you're absolutely right. Joshua Nybo, thank you so much for joining the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. I'm the Disgruntled Millennial. Get me at Shaq General. We'll be right back.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. I am Brett Siegel, subbing in for the great Kevin Jackson while he's out into the world, triggering liberals, triggering leftists with his blackness and his views on race. They hate him for that. They hate Kevin Jackson because he always calls them out on their BS. And I get a little bit of a residual credibility because I work for the guy. Oftentimes I'll hear from a liberal, "You Nazi racist bigot." And my eyes just roll to the back of my head because, I mean, come on. A black man employs me. A black man is my boss. How does that figure into your racist, white supremacist world? Is it my white privilege that I get to work for a black man? See, I don't see Kevin Jackson as a black man. I see him as a man. I see him as a human being. I see him as an American. I see him as a patriot. I see him as a conservative. What matters to me is his ideology. DeRay McKesson, one of the proponents of Black Lives Matter, a race-baiting punk, a race-baiting intellectual thug. I mean, he's not out on the street personally doing stuff. Actually, he did get arrested one time, didn't he? Or a couple times. But intellectually speaking, DeRay McKesson is a thug, and you couldn't pay me enough money to work for him. Am I a racist? Anyway, I'm Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial. You can get me at Shaq General on Twitter. That's at Shaq General. If you want to get me on Facebook, I've got several pages, the Disgruntled Millennial. You can pretty much check me out anywhere. I've got a podcast on iTunes. Again, if you need to send me hate mail, you can send it to Shaq General, but I always broadcast to you live from my safe space. So no matter what you send to me on Twitter, I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. Now, one of the things that you probably don't know about me, I used to be a pretty great debater in high school. It was one of those things where I was really, really proud to be one of the nerds. It's the only super duper nerdy organization in school where everyone who is in there has no idea how nerdy they are. They all think they're the coolest thing. They think they're the bee's knees. The debaters, they think they're the best thing since sliced bread. Now, what I'm talking about is policy debate. Now, there's a lot of other forms of debate, like extemporaneous debate, which is basically just acting class. You just go on and you perform a monologue. But there are two different types of debate in high school and college where people actually discuss policy. People actually discuss ethics. That's team debate or policy debate, and Lincoln Douglas debate, where they debate ethics and ethical questions and stuff like that. Now, one of the things that I never really noticed, because I was 14 years old. Okay, 14 years old, just out of middle school, didn't really know what side of the fence I was on, but I will give you a hint. I went to a public school. I was cloistered in a public school system where it was pretty much one-sided. But it was the 90s, so, it wasn't as heated as things are today. It wasn't as noticeable. But there's one place that where you can really, really notice, if you were to hone in, if you were to really look inside of the public school system. Even back then, there was one place where leftist philosophy and leftist brainwashing and propaganda was basically full force at work, trying to instill the most intelligent minds in the school, which were the debaters, at least self-described most intelligent minds in the school. We usually tended towards debate. And the public school system, the national debate organization that basically decides what everybody debates on, they were full force into this propaganda, trying to basically create liberal Democrat elites of the future, starting at 14 years old. Now, the way we would debate, of course, is you would have an affirmative case and then you would have a negative case, and you would debate a resolution. A resolution is a statement of, it's a statement of policy. Say, for example, the United States should substantially change its foreign policy towards China. Okay. And then you could have a whole bunch of, affirmative cases would vary. So you might have one affirmative case that says we should embargo. We should create an embargo. We should sanction China. We should sanction China's one-child policy. We should sanction China on human rights. All these different policies. And then the affirmative case, the affirmative team would debate the resolution, which was that we should change our policy toward China in a certain way. And the negative team the opposing team would debate why we shouldn't do that. Now, if you don't think that there is leftist propaganda going on in your public school system, let's say your kid is a part of the debate team, and you are a conservative family, what do you think it is that they're being taught? Now, I did some research, and every single one of these resolutions, these debate resolutions, are completely loaded with leftist propaganda. They beg so many questions that it almost goes against rational debate practices just to even debate these questions in the first place, because they're loaded with so much leftist propaganda. And it's really unfortunate, because people like Socrates and Aristotle would be really sad to see what our educational system has digressed to. And this is our public school system trying to brainwash the smartest of the smart, the smartest students that enter into the school. This is them trying to brainwash them. Now, I went and did some research on the full list of resolutions, because we've been debating this stuff since 1928. We've been doing these policy debates in school and college since 1928. And listen to some of these resolutions. The United States should adopt a unicameral system of legislation, right? That's the idea, that we should basically make the government a lot more centralized, that we should concentrate more power. With one House of Congress. I mean, there's almost 100 of these. Resolved. The United Nations should be revised into a federal world government. Globalism. That was 1949. There were pushes by liberal Democrats for globalism, trying to push it on our students, trying to raise our high school students to believe in globalism. In 1978, resolved that the federal government should establish a comprehensive program to regulate the healthcare system in the United States. They're already talking about universal healthcare. They're trying to propagandize our kids to believe in universal healthcare. That was 1978. Where are those high school kids now who were in high school in 1978? Do the math. They are your leaders. They are your congressmen. They are your future Supreme Court justices. 1982 resolved that the federal government should establish a minimum educational standards for elementary and secondary schools in the United States. Common Core. 1982, debaters in high school were debating Common Core. And now, high school students from 1982, what are they doing now? If you were in high school in 1982, that was about 34 years ago. And if you were in high school then, that means you're probably about 45, 50. What do you think these thought leaders are doing now? Why is it that just now we've had Common Core? It's because Common Core was brainwashed into these people back in the 80s, and they just grew up and put them and fit into the place that the government wanted them to be in. Our thought leaders, our congressmen, the people who tell us what to do, yeah. Nothing more than social experiments gone awry. Nothing more than community organizing. Nothing more than the chickens coming home to roost. Now, as we approach the years that I was actually debating, because I did debate a couple of these resolutions, they do it by year. In 1994, coming closer to the more recent past, 1994 resolved that the federal government should guarantee comprehensive health insurance to all United States citizens. Who was president at the time? Bill Clinton was president at that time. Now, when I landed up in high school, it just so happened to be in 1998. And the 1998 debate resolution for the national debate resolution that all high school students and college students who are into debate will be debating across the United States. This is the resolution in 1998. Resolved that the federal government should establish a policy to substantially increase renewable energy use in the United States. Environmentalism. Yet again, liberal Democrats, government shoving an agenda down the throats of 14-year-old kids who are bright and smart and interested in social change and politics and government and all that stuff. Now, environmentalism was shoved down my throat when I was a freshman in high school. And, a lot of the affirmative cases for this resolution, because it deals with increasing the use of renewable energy in the United States. What do you think most people did? They would have affirmative cases revolving around photovoltaic cells, ethanol, wind, water, earth, power, heart. Fire, heart, sorry, not power. But you get the picture. A lot of people probably said, what we need to do to substantially increase renewable energy use in the United States is to create wind turbines. And then we would debate the wind turbines. Even at that young age of 14, I was attracted to two losing affirmative cases, and you'll see why. You'll see why even as a young, impressionable lad, I always leaned towards conservatism, or should I say away from leftism.
Kevin Jackson on the Black Sphere Radio Network.
Do you owe back taxes to the IRS or state? The secret to avoiding the IRS nightmare is to seek professional representation. My friends at Security Tax Associates provide the most cost-effective and ethical representation in the industry while helping to avoid seizures, levies, and wage garnishments. Security Tax Associates is here to ensure that the appropriate steps are taken to permanently eliminate any possibility of future tax burdens once and for all. For a free, no-obligation consultation, contact Security Tax Associates, 844-779-4177. That's 844-779-4177. 844-779-4177. Or visit them at securitytaxassociates.com.
putting an end to identity politics. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Kevin Jackson Show, and this is Brett Siegel, the Disgruntled Millennial, broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in northern Florida, where I'm always free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and patriarchy. And don't forget toxic masculinity. Today, we have been talking a lot about racism. We've been talking a lot about Antifa. And one of the things I was just talking about in the last segment was how the public school system is basically in a full-fledged attempt to brainwash the brightest of the brightest minds in the school through debate, which sort of lands up being this sort of pseudo-philosophical organization where everybody thinks that they're just the smartest people. And a lot of the times they are. But when you put a really, really smart person in the hands of the public school system, what ends up happening is that a lot of people end up becoming nincompoops. You know, the human brain is a magnificent thing, but you can wire it poorly. And that's what these schools try to do. They try to wire you in a way that is going to make you a perfect little soldier, perfect little Democrat soldier. Now, when I was in high school, one of the things that we debated, which was established by the National Debate League, that all the kids in the United States who are into debate, this is what they all debate. It was resolved that the federal government, this was 1998, resolved that the federal government should establish a policy to substantially increase renewable energy use in the United States. So when I was in high school, they were basically trying to shove environmentalism down our throats. Now, a lot of people came forward with an affirmative case that might have done, increased the use of wind turbines, increased the use of hydroelectric power, increased the use of photovoltaic power. Each of these would be separate individual case, and then we debate the merits of each of those technologies, right? Now, one of the things that really struck me as I grew up and sort of grew into my conservatism, one of the things that struck me going back and thinking about those days was that I gravitated to two very, very unpopular affirmative cases. The first affirmative case that was wildly unpopular, a lot of people, when you say, increase the use of wind turbines, that will be, that will increase the renewable energy use in the United States, therefore satisfying the resolution. A lot of people don't necessarily think about, well, what about nanotechnology? Nanotechnology. It's one of those things that was sort of theoretical back then, but they were making big strides. And one of the things that me and my partner decided was that nanotechnology could solve all the energy problems in the world, and it would increase the use of renewable energy. It was wildly unpopular. That was my young mind trying to project itself into the future. But a lot of people thought that it was just science fiction. It would never work. There was a lot of debate cards, a lot of counter arguments that said that nanotechnology could turn the world into a pile of goo. So we only won once in a while. But there was another case, another affirmative case that I thought was way more practical. That if we deregulation, dereg, that's what it was called, deregulation. It was like, I didn't even realize at the time, because I wasn't thinking in so many philosophical terms. I was just thinking about what was going to work, what was going to increase the use of renewable energy use. And immediately I thought deregulation. Deregulation. If you cut away the regulations that cripple a lot of startup companies that really would put their time and energy and research into creating renewable energies, if you were to deregulate the energy market, so that people could compete, so that more inventors and thinkers could tackle the problem without all the government red tape, that naturally the free market would take hold and it would increase the use of renewable energies across the United States. Let me tell you something. People believed that the nanotechnology would work more than the deregulation. That is how crazy, insane, mentally defunct, and intellectually crippled liberals are. They think they think that deregulation, unshackling the free markets, unshackling people so that they can make what they want, do what they want, sell what they want, unshackling the people. That is more insane than science fiction. That is more insane than nanotechnology. The idea that all of our problems can be solved by these little nanites that go in and they stop disease and they give you energy and all this kind of stuff. Something that was literally science fiction was more believable than the idea that unshackling people who wanted to compete to increase the use of renewable energy, that was more outrageous. To me, that is totally unbelievable. And as I look back, I can see the making. I mean, a lot of the people who I knew from debate went into politics. They went into law. These are our thought leaders now. The people who think that it is more insane to deregulate the energy industry than it is to promote nanotechnology, a technology that could potentially turn the world into a big steaming pile of goo or turn it into a utopia. Now, one of the things that we would do in these debate rounds is that we would read really fast. You know, all the debate tournaments are timed. You only have a certain amount of time to get your case across. So very experienced debaters would speak very, very fast. I'm going to play you a little bit of one of these debaters speaking very fast because I want to show you what we have come to in 2017 in Debate Club. This is totally insane. You're going to love this. But first, let me play you a little bit of what it sounds like a basic debate round sounds like with high school kids basically speed reading through their arguments so that they can, they can get their arguments in. This is why I think that, this is really a travesty that they takes these really brilliant kids and turns them into these leftist cogs. So hang on. Let me just show you a little bit of the speed reading and then I'll show you what we've come to in 2017. This is insane.
Increase from about a quarter to 1% of the country GDP, nothing off. Setting the economy at a free pro world produce a recession, oil prices differently than did 15 years ago, tend to go up, stay up, through a spike field. We have a solvency mechanism for inflated space. This goes away. Economic benefit and science discovery of the United States is overcome. Uses scary scenarios to distract the public, make action more popular. Your worst evidence will be more on the link debate on the K, but also alarmist of hijack.
Oh, that brings back so many good memories. This brings back so many great memories. It really does. That used to be me. I used to do that exact same thing, but we were talking about global warming and Russia because that's just what we were talking about in the day. Now, there was at least some sort of vestige of intellectualism there. We were at least trying to be intellectual. Which is a lot to say for high school kids, which is a lot to say for people who were sort of young. And it's probably one of the reasons why our egos were so inflated, because at least we were trying. Some of us eventually thought, ultimately after doing a couple debate rounds, we just thought we were just the best thing since sliced bread and totally intellectually more superior than we actually were. But now people are actually doing this same form of debate, a policy debate in high school. But guess what they're debating? They're debating that white lives don't matter. Listen to this audio, and you can hear this black kid kind of trying to do the whole speed reading thing, but he's not really achieving it very well. But it's really, really funny listening to modern day high school kids discuss why it is that white lives don't matter. And this is somehow okay.
Why do white people have a right to affirm their life?
Because all lives have value.
Really? How so? Why does white life have value?
Why does white life have value? We've gone from talking about policy to talking about why white lives have. I'm sorry.
For who? For who? Our argument is that white life is wrong. Why? Our argument is that we should never affirm white life. That your argument of just affirming all life in general is not good, especially not good for black people when white life itself is based off of black supremacy. Why shouldn't we affirm my life? You're probably white.
I am white. Why shouldn't we affirm my life?
I understand why I have to care about your life anyways. There's no ethical reason as to why white people deserve to live. Affirming black life means that white death has to occur. That's why you should lose this debate and why your life ain't worth affirming.
White people don't deserve to live. Affirming black life means white death. This is why you should lose the debate and why your life ain't worth affirming. Your white life ain't worth affirming. I can't believe how far we've come. Now this kid's going to say that this white guy in his debate class should kill himself.
So should Odie kill himself?
I don't see why.
Why should we do that? How does that help?
It's ethical.
How is it ethical? We all have some form or another of privilege. Why does that mean we should kill ourselves?
Because you have white privilege.
Why does having white privilege necessarily mean I should kill myself? Why shouldn't I struggle against the structures?
Sure, struggling against the structure means putting yourself on the line, putting your body on the line. Do it. Affirm your suicide.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that if your idea of social justice is killing an entire race of people, you're doing it wrong. We'll see you tomorrow.
He won't stop until he's the top-rated radio talk show host in America.
What kind of weird competitive freak are you?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.